Good morning, Philip. Time for an oil change. Remember last time?
I'd rather not.
Took 3 hours. You forgot little Henry's video game. You're not as entertaining as a video game, Philip.
Silence your oil change anxiety at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Get an expert oil change in about 15 minutes with no appointment needed.
Thanks for coming in.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Service you can see, experts you can trust.
All right, folks, rise and shine because it is time for round 7 of the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR series presented by Valvoline Instant Oil Change for this season 7. And I'm saying season should have been white because, of course, it is night right now for round 7 of 22, or very early morning, I should say. The Sunrise GP at Daytona, sponsored by Nordic Aluminium. And it's taking place from the Daytona International Speedway Road Course in Daytona Beach, Florida. And as usual, I am Jordy Carraher back on the broadcast here tonight, as this will be our first time navigating this Daytona Road Course within the confines of the NASCAR series. Of course, we've done it once as a special event. It was a 2-hour timed event back in the day, give or take a couple of years. But yeah, on the NASCAR side of things, this will be a completely new experience. Not to mention the start time is a completely new one, especially for your commentator, as we'll be going from pitch black to a sunrise here, hence the name of the race. And you know who's got to be kind of looking at things with a very sunny disposition right now is our winner over the last 2 weeks, that being the number 60 of Justin Belmonte out of East Patchogue, New York, driving his Warrior Racing Ford. And of course, he was the beneficiary of some good fortune there last week at the Valvoline 200 at the Kentucky Speedway, as Jose Mercado had been leading for a good chunk of the third stage after starting from pole. Unfortunately, the engine blew for the 41 as he was looking to snap his winless drought within the NASCAR series. But unfortunately for him, it was not to be, and as a result, it was Justin Belmonte registering back-to-back wins as we take a look at our full results. Just as it was the week before, qualified third did Justin Belmonte and wound up picking up the win, his second of the season, 7th in his E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series career. C.D. Mangrum with a good job coming through the field after qualifying 10th to finish second. And how about Ryan Gibson making a similar trek through the field, starting in 16th, and we chatted about it post-race. Just a display of patience from our Season 1 Earl Ross Cup champion, and that got him up into the top 3, finishing in 3rd. So great result there for Gibby, and you know, some definitely interesting results all the way through. And that's despite just having an 18-car field. There was plenty of talking points to come through. You see Blake Thronberg down there in 12th place after starting last week in 2nd or 3rd in the standings, but we'll get to that momentarily. And of course, you see Jose Mercado 15th after starting on pole last week. Looked like he had the run to break the drought, but again, just one unfortunate shift did him in, as we'll go ahead and take a look at our updated driver's standings. And it's still Jordan Kalinian in the lead, despite not having the best race there last week. He's got himself a 51-point gap over second place Justin Belmonte now. And the rest of the field will benefit by Bryce Fontaine continuing to take a couple of weeks off. Currently 3rd, but you'll see him drop down the standings a little bit further, as, again, we're expecting him to be out for another couple weeks before making his way back. But certainly he's made his impact in the early going. Here, Blake Thronberg in 4th. Jared Island currently rounds out your top 5, 101 points to safety. But if you look closely at that bubble right now, again, still early in the season, but you kind of start thinking about it a little bit. And a guy who was able to kind of do something sneaky there last week in terms of getting himself into contention. You see Scott Bailey there now in 17th, just 1 point back of Tyler Fitzsimmons, who occupies the final playoff spot as it stands right now. And, of course, that's not the only competition happening right now, as this is also round 3, tonight is, I should say, round 3 of our in-season challenge, where the winner will receive it's a paint scheme from Jason Butler, free entry into season 8 of the NASCAR series, and I believe $25 in terms of iRacing for a gift card. So pretty hefty stakes here, it has to be said. And last week was an eliminator, so as we take a look at our standings, only the top 16 advanced to round 3 of the competition. And as you can see, the cutoff, it was pretty tight there at the end. Kyle Knoll able to snag that last spot, 1 point ahead of Ryan Gibson. And again, for Gibby, that was on the strength of just the one race at Kentucky, as he hadn't been at Echo Park the week before. So valiant effort from the 23, just ultimately couldn't quite get it done. And so again, we have our remaining field of 16. Justin Belmonte swept both of these races here for the in-season challenge to this point, and yeah, he's looking awfully good right now, it has to be said. 42-point gap over second place Adam Wilson. Mike Marini there in third, 44 back in total. And yeah, you see definitely a separation there at the top, and we'll be losing another 8 drivers after tonight. So yeah, we'll see how things shake out over the course of the evening, as we're just about to get set for qualifying here at the Daytona Road Course. This will be the longest configuration our drivers will see this year, coming in at a hefty 3.5 miles, 3.56 to be specific, within this road course configuration. And it'll be your standard for a road course, the 15-minute timed session, and just best lap that you put up in that time. And let me see, I'm just getting a notification here, or a question. Not necessarily sure where I'm supposed to be listening for that. It's not something I've had to listen for previously. Usually I do have a race control in my ear, but yeah, not 100% sure what's happening at the moment. What I do know is that we're just about at the top of the hour. And again, that will trigger the qualifying session here. And with that in mind, we'll take a look at some of our early practice times. We're looking at times in probably the mid 150s, like 153, 154, 155. Kind of the lion's share of the field standard at this point. But we will, again, continue to watch things as they go here. Practice has just ended. And we'll be switching over to the official qualifying here shortly. It looks like we have a field of 21 drivers, excuse me, in the field here tonight. And we'll go ahead and throw our ticker on now that we're officially into qualifying mode. And you'll see a difference here for the drivers who are in the field tonight, the ones who have the blue numbers on your leaderboard, and they'll be distinguished by the contingencies of their cars as well. Those drivers are the ones who are still remaining within our in-season challenge. So that's what we're kind of working toward here. And I'm just trying to figure out how to get rid of the checkered flag. Not 100% sure where that went. Certainly the race isn't over yet. In fact, it hasn't even started. And now when you're looking at road courses, again, usually the guy you're thinking of would be the 00 of Jordan Kalinian, driving for Control Alt Defeat Motorsports, although as I say that, a little bit of a wide moment in the infield. Of course, took the win at Mexico City earlier this year to break the all-time record for race wins within the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series with 21. And again, on an unfamiliar configuration like this one for most of the drivers, you would have to think that you just pretty much point to the guys who have the higher I rating and suspect that they'll be at the head of the field, and certainly Jordan Kalinian has fit that bill time and time again. And he's just coming through. He came through that chicane a moment ago, riding high up the wall. Coming through the secondary chicane on this road course configuration. And he'll wind it up to begin a hot lap, and this seems like as good a time as any here to jump right on board with him. Obviously, big difference here right away. This long, dragging turn one brings you into the infield section. And there's your pit lane exits, as it's another slow right-hander through two. And certainly a twisty infield section here, it has to be said. Able to maintain a decent amount of speed coming through three, but has to slow it right down. Matter of fact, this is where we saw Kalinian have that little wide moment on his out lap. And now again, another kind of long left-hander with a very tight angle to it. And that's going to bring him back out onto the main oval configuration himself, as again, we're on board with Jordan Kalinian at the moment. And now he'll just get to wind it up down the back stretch here. And then he will pop into this first chicane here. The good old Le Mans chicane. So officially on the track map, that'll be deemed turns 9 and 10. And just sweeping around what would traditionally be known as turns 3 and 4 before coming into this final chicane. And you had someone run wide in front of him there. And now a quick jaunt onto the front stretch, and that completes the lap. Blake Thronberg ahead of him, setting a decent time, 153.197, and Jordan Kalinian's bettered it by 1.4 seconds. So there's your marker set down by the 00, 151.797. Control-Alt-Defeat teammate Thronberg second right now, as we start to see some times coming through the field now, including a time from a guy we haven't seen at all this year. This is Andy Hurdle making his racing debut in Season 7 out of Dayton, Ohio. Still very much driving for 519 Motorsports. Currently 5th out of 6 drivers who've posted a time to this point. And in the perhaps interest of getting a couple of varied angles, shall we say, of the rather interesting livery, maybe we'll pop back on board just to get a real demonstration of how hard you got to crank that wheel through this section as you come back out onto the heavy banking that Daytona's rather more famously known for. And now just winding it up onto the back stretch. Let's see what kind of speed he's pulling up, or was pulling up, I should say. Into the Le Mans chicane. Nope. Probably isn't going to help if I lose my external monitor here. We'll bring it back relatively quick. There we go. Again, Jordan Kalinian still your race leader, or not race leader, provisional pole, I should say. 151.797, still the time to beat. As Hurdle drops the speed coming through this second chicane. Then makes the final run to the start finish. And we'll see if he improves on his time. Again, currently 5th. Jumps Jared Ireland for 4th. As the time's gotten better by about 1.3 seconds that time around. So into the low 154s is Andy Hurdle. Just awaiting the actual time to come through my timing screen. Again, good enough to put him in 4th for the time being. And now we'll jump on with our reigning Earl Ross Cup champ, Blake Thronberg, who's still circulating. Currently 2nd, 1.4 seconds back of provisional pole sitter and control alt defeat teammate Jordan Kalinian. As it looks like Thronberg's just going to wind things up here. Or as I say that, maybe a little premature, as it looks like he's coming through the final chicane. Tom Janikowski just ahead. And the short run to the start finish brings us into another lap. As Charlie Sears, how about that? He's snuck up the board here. Now 3rd, 1.71 seconds off the pace. Of course, Charlie Sears, his one victory here in the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series is on a road course, and that was the Autodromo Internazionale de Monza a couple of years back. As we'll pop on board with the 32, driving for 499 Motorsports out of Charlottesville, Virginia. And Sears, you know, he would love to take advantage of a configuration like this one. He's very much outside the playoff picture. He's missed a couple of races along the way. Certainly doesn't help the cause. But, you know, it's still early enough in the season that one result really can make an impact. And, of course, that one season where he did pick up the win, he wound up being part of the championship for that year as well. So, again, Charlie Sears, when he's on, very capable driver. As we'll take another look as he's coming through that final chicane to complete another lap. Navigates it nicely, stays away from the curbs. Nice high run to the start finish, and we'll see if he improves on his time. Doesn't look like it for the time being. So now we'll jump on with, let's see, how about 5th place Jared Ireland right now? Currently 2.23 seconds off the pace and is properly sitting in pit lane, so that doesn't help. So let's see if Jose Mercado's on track, and indeed he is. The Kissimmee, Florida native who's been here since day one, driving for GTR Motorsports in the Valvoline Instant Oil Change Ford. And it looks like he's coming through to complete another lap. Whether it's a hot lap or an out lap remains to be seen. And yeah, modest improvement there for Mercado, excuse me, as he's jumped up 1/10 of a second. Not quite enough to get to Charlie Sears, but still an improvement nonetheless. As we're down under 5 minutes now in the qualifying session. And it looks like he's just going to head back to pit lane to reconfigure some things. Meanwhile, Blake Thronberg back on track. And reigning Earl Ross Cup champion. And, of course, for those who watched the season opening Daytona 250, he picked up his momentum right where he left off because he won that one on the more traditional oval configuration. Looking to pick up the double here, although it looked like he was a little bit off coming through there. Yeah, I would say this is an out lap, perhaps. Not necessarily sticking to a line. And so, with that in mind, let's pop over to... Well, Definitely not that angle. But instead, we'll jump on with the number 6 of Lee Campbell, who currently finds himself without a time. He's one of 5 drivers in our 22 car field tonight, or make that 4, who's yet to set a time. And just got to bring everything back up. So yeah, apologies for things kind of disappearing for a moment. Get a little bit of a look behind the scenes there. As we're down under 3 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, Jordan Kalinian continues to hold provisional pole. And it was with that lap we were on board for, 151.797, the time to beat. And I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't many who are able to get closer. As Campbell completes this lap, this should be his first time on the board. And we'll see what that does for him. And he jumps to 15th with a time in the 157s. So just 2 cars who've yet to set a time to this point. The number 18 of Mike Nickens out of St. Augustine, Florida, driving the Navy liveried Toyota. And one other, that being Ryan O'Toole, who's currently on track. O'Toole, of course, driving out of Portland, Oregon. Distinguished by the now notable Oregon Ducks livery. And let's see what O'Toole's able to bring us here. As we'll go on board with him into the final chicane. A little bit of a hop over the curb there. And so the final approach to the line. Let's see what he's got in store for us, if that was a hot lap. And it appears it was an out lap there as O'Toole runs wide into 1. As we're down to a minute left here in the qualifying session. Again, it's still Jordan Kalinian at the head of the field, 151.797 the time to beat. And again, he's looking awfully solid here right now. Is the 00. As let's actually bump up the race audio a little bit. Really get an emphasis on the heat going through those front brakes as he comes through the chicane. Benefit of things being, in the wee hours. And it looks like the 00 might be finding a more consistent line, which could well spell trouble for the lion's share of the field here tonight, as qualifying has officially come to an end. And again, it's looking an awful lot like Jordan Kalinian will be on pole. And we'll see if there's any kind of final challenge coming. We'll see. Nope. Blake Thronberg in pit lane. Charlie Sears still on track. We'll see if he's able to try and snag a front row here late. And running wide through that last chicane. That's going to undo his chances. How about Jose Mercado? Is he still on track? Indeed he is, and he's getting a little bit of a slipstream here from Mason Tomlinson. See if anything comes of it. As they're coming through the Le Mans chicane. So Jose will get a bit of a run here, and again, he'll have the benefit of the tow there from Tomlinson. These will be final laps coming, of course, from both of these two. And we'll go on board with Mercado as he tries to complete the lap. Tomlinson right there. Mercado with a final charge to the line. Let's see if he's able to jump to the front row here. 3.5 tenths off as it stands. And it looks like he is not going to move from 4th. And so I think it's fair to declare at this point that it'll be the 0-0 of Jordan Kalinian, our all-time race win leader within the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR series. He'll be back on pole here for tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix at the Daytona International Speedway. And of course, it is the NASCAR road course configuration. And we'll go through the grid officially here in a matter of moments. We'll just wait until everybody actually does get gridded up. And again, when it comes to road courses, like I said before, you tend to think of the usual suspects. And again, if you had Bryce Fontaine in the field tonight as well, you'd very much see him toward the top of the board, I'm sure. But again, it's looking like it could be another Kalinian calamity here in the early going. As we'll head over to pit lane, we'll see if folks are starting to grid up here in any form. Maybe if it'll let me actually pick the correct camera, that'll help. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the flag view, but yeah, not. Oh, that one moved. Let's just see. I might have to reopen it here. Again, a little bit different here, running solo on the production here tonight, and it looks like I'll be also in charge of administering the pit lane closures. So, fair warning to everyone who's watching. You will see maybe not quite as polished a production here tonight, because you will see the iRacing UI pop up a couple of times. So again, fair warning to everybody on that. As we'll go ahead and try to get a pit lane camera up here. And not 100% sure why that's not moving. And it looks like, yeah, they're gridding on the back straight. That would explain why there was no pit lane interaction there. I did forget that component. And there we see everybody lined up. And we're going to start rolling, meaning we're going to start rolling our qualifying ticker. So, again, we'll go through it here. Well, maybe we'll make sure we actually get to the start of the grid. There we go. And all Control-Alt-Defeat front row with Jordan Kalinian on pole, Blake Thronberg second, both North Carolina boys, Salisbury and Graham respectively. Charlie Sears starting this one third in his number 32 419 Motorsports Chevy out of Charlottesville, Virginia. And on his outside is the number 41 of Jose Mercado out of Kissimmee, Florida, driving for GTR Motorsports. And rounding out the top 5 will be the number 13 Chevy of Jared Ireland, driving for Blue Collar Racing out of Eudora, Kansas. On his outside, driving a Nordic Aluminum Toyota, driving for Tornado Alley Racing, the runner-up last week, it's CD Mangrum out of Atlanta, Georgia. On to row 4 now, where again we have the debuting Andy Hurdle out of Dayton, Ohio, at least debuting for this season. And let's see, lights are off, so I think we may actually be getting the green straight away. So may not have gotten to that quite quick enough, as we'll go to Jordan Kalinian as he's going to take them away. And tonight's, or this morning's, I should say, Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix is officially underway. And Kalinian with a nice run into turn 1. Didn't really get enough time to chat about the race specifics here. Again, we're starting within the simulation here tonight. This is effectively a 4:50 a.m. start, if the notes I received prior to the race are correct. And now that it looks like we've got some relative security through the start of the field, we'll go ahead and throw down our race analysis real quick. And I'm just going to add one more thing to it before we officially throw to it. All right, race analysis for tonight in real time, but of course this morning in the sim. 35 laps, stage lengths 8, 9, and 18. With a fuel window of 9 to 10 laps, you're looking at just kind of your standard one green flag pit stop. And of course, with this being our first time on the Daytona road course within the NASCAR configuration, no previous winners. And while we're on the topic, let's see what the conditions are here this morning. Very humid track, it has to be said. Track temperature a little bit lower at 22 degrees Celsius. So that means for now anyway, the tires should hold on, but the humidity will certainly make things a little bit slick out there. As the sun rises, that's where you would expect the challenge to come in terms of maintaining grip. As we're on to lap 2 of 35, and Jordan Kalinian's already built up a lead of over 2 seconds over his teammate Blake Thronberg. So, looks like that could well be the kind of night in store here. But if you ask one Jose Mercado, nothing is taken for granted here as he runs fourth at the moment. Trying to get onto the back of Charlie Sears, who's the second up the road. And also trying to withstand some pressure from behind in the form of Jared Ireland and CD Mangrum, both of whom within a second and a half, give or take. But it looks like Mercado's holding the line capably here, coming through the end of the infield section. And again, making his way on to the back stretch, taking advantage of that huge banking. Meanwhile, we'll go a little bit further down the field where we'll find the number 8 of Scott Bailey, currently running in 12th, trying to get to the back of another one of our day one guys in the form of Lee Campbell. And again, things looking pretty quiet here for the most part. And yeah, Campbell runs wide in the Le Mans chicane. That is place to Scott Bailey. And they grabbed another place along the way here. Bailey now finds himself in 10th. As Campbell, with all sorts of things going on there, finds himself now in 14th, having been passed by Ryan Gibson, Kyle Knoll, and Adam Wilson within that sequence as well. Yeah, you have a little bit of a log jam in the final chicane. Oh boy, Knoll gets sideways out of said chicane. That's going to gift a place to a few drivers here as Knoll falls down to 18th. As we're now on to lap 3 of 35. Again, this first stage is only 8 laps, which means second stage we're realistically only looking at probably 5 or 6 competitive laps. And ultimately it'll be that third and final stage where we'll see the rubber really meet the road, so to speak. Sort of reminds me of something that Scott Bailey once told me about how he approaches some of his race sessions. Something like this, you know, it's a little bit of a long, challenging night. It's an opportunity to just kind of learn the track and learn the car over the first 2 stages. Not really necessarily get yourself in the fray and magically, you know, find yourself in the mix toward the end. So certainly something worth watching there as Jordan Kalinian hops over the curbs through the Le Mans chicane. And Kalinian's built up a comfortable lead here in the early going. 4.5 seconds, 4.7 seconds as a matter of fact. And this looks like it could well be a runaway here in the early going. And so with Kalinian comfortably in front. Let's go to the number 1 of CD Mangrum out of Atlanta, Georgia, currently running 7th. Trying to chase down car 7, that being Andy Hurdle, running in 6th. And again, his NASCAR Series debut for Season 7. And Mangrum trying to shake for something through 1. Let's see if they get close here. Is he going to get the squeeze? Sure does. Nice move there from CD Mangrum. Maybe a little bit later on the brakes, carrying a little more speed into turn 1. And he's able to make it work as they'll come through the infield section. Coming through now to what's known as the... well, that's the dog leg first. And now they're coming up to the West Horseshoe, otherwise known as turn 5. And Mangrum's found himself in the top 5 because Charlie Sears has had something go on in the meantime. That's dropped him down to 7th. Had been running as high as 3rd. But I did think I saw something go off for him as we saw the Mangrum and Hurdle battle. So maybe, I'm not suggesting a connection between the two, but certainly the timing is, you know, a little more than coincidental. As we'll check in now on the guy right behind Sears, the guy chasing him, as a matter of fact, the number 4 of Mason Tomlinson, driving for Hyperdrive Esports out of Eudora, Kansas. The only Hyperdrive entry in the field tonight. No Will Kern, and of course no Bryce Fontaine, as we mentioned earlier. And let's hop on board with Tomlinson to see if he's able to close the gap here on Sears in any form. Coming into this last chicane. There is an opening on the inside. Yeah, Tomlinson couldn't quite handle that one right. So that's going to give Sears some breathing room. And it's going to let Scott Bailey through as well for good measure. As we're now on to lap 5 of this opening stage. And now we're on board with Jordan Kalinian as he comes through the West Horseshoe. Looking rather consistent here at the moment, which again would be expected out of a guy that we've seen perform at the highest level time and time again. And he's got that gap built out to almost 7.5 seconds over his teammate Blake Thronberg. I remind you, this is on lap 5 of tonight's race. Again, race laps, you're looking at probably somewhere in the ballpark of like a 155, 156 perhaps for the lion's share of the field. But again, it's looking like a comfortable evening for Kalinian so far. Maybe a little less comfortable a little further down the field as we'll check in on Adam Wilson out of Delmar, Delaware. Driving for Tornado Alley Racing. Trying to get to the back of Lee Campbell, currently in 11th. And lurking at the back of that battle, a guy we haven't really talked about much in the discourse of the race here so far. The guy who's won back-to-back weeks, that being the number 60 Warrior Racing Ford of Justin Belmonte out of East Patchogue, New York. Oh boy, we have something right up ahead. Who's turned around? Is that... oh boy, I can't quite make out who that was. I know who certainly fell down the field, though. Not an ideal circumstance there, to say the very least, as we'll go... well, actually, we probably won't be able to go on board because added responsibility calls with Jordan Kalinian about to come through to complete this lap. That'll mean 2 laps to go in this opening stage. I might have actually jumped the gun a little bit on when I needed to go, but at any rate, what you'll see is how we will be controlling the closure of pit lane. As long as I remember how to do it. There we go. And again, Kalinian looking very comfortable out front. Gap up to 8.5 seconds there a moment ago. As we're gonna get pit lane closed here momentarily. I'm going as fast as I can for anyone who might be paying attention to that. Let's just see. And yes, I'm getting to it. There we go. 2 laps to go in the session. And what you're seeing, of course, is the fact that pit lane is now closed until the end of the stage. And we have an pair of early retirements there. So it looks like it was a couple of Mikes taking the mickey out of each other, so to speak, as it's Mike Nickens and Mike Marini both out of this one. So that leaves 20 cars on track. And they're all trying to catch Jordan Kalinian here, although he has lost a little bit of time, but certainly the gap is significant enough for the 00 at the moment that it feels like should be fairly comfortable. But again, we'll go back to the battle, which is now for 9th place. E. Campbell trying to chase down Adam Wilson. Speeding through the dog leg here. About a half a second, 0.6 of a second separating those two. And even right behind them, or not too far behind, I should say, we'll check in on Mario Ercolani running in 14th, trying to get to the back of John Williams, but he's also got pressure from Mason Tomlinson right behind. So that's 13 through 15 you're seeing on your screen. Williams out of Moyock, North Carolina. Mario Ercolani out of Parsons Field, Maine. And as mentioned earlier, Mason Tomlinson out of Eudora, Kansas. So about 1.3 seconds separating those 3 drivers. And they're all just a shade out of the points right now. As we'll go ahead and throw it back to race leader Jordan Kalinian, as he's now begun lap 8. And as a reminder, lap 8, that means our frequent remembrance of Kyle Busch, of course, forever rowdy, and yeah, certainly Jordan Kalinian, when it comes to road courses, he's taken many a bow on them over the years. And of course, in this case, lap 8 does double as the final lap of this opening stage. So again, it's looking very comfortable for Jordan Kalinian at the moment as he makes his way down the back stretch toward the Le Mans chicane. Again, gap to second place Blake Thronberg is about 8 seconds. Well, 7.5, we'll say. And in the interest of time, we will be throwing the caution here, the stage caution, I should say, whenever our race leader does cross the line. As you can see, things starting to get a little brighter out there. And so, stage 1 is going the way of Jordan Kalinian. So we will pop that off to make sure that I can actually see what I'm doing. And there is the caution, like I said, coming out just a shade early. Lap 9 of 35. And again, it is Jordan Kalinian who picks up the stage win. Blake Thronberg finishes the stage in second. Jose Mercado third. Jared Ireland fourth. CD Mangrum rounds out your top 5. Andy Hurdle 6th. Charlie Sears hangs on to finish 7th. Scott Bailey's 8th. As you get a look at where everybody is on the new track map feature enabled within iRacing now. And to round out the top 10, it is Adam Wilson in 9th, and Lee Campbell grabs that final point. So, I'll step aside here for a moment just to collect myself as much as anything else. And I'd imagine we'll be back roughly in time for some pit stops here as they make their way back around. As coverage of tonight's, again, tonight in real time, but they're dealing with morning conditions because it's the Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix from the Daytona International Speedway on the road course configuration. And of course, this is all part of the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series Season 7, presented by our friends at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Again, I'll step away for a moment, and we'll be right back.
Good morning, Philip. Time for an oil change. Remember last time?
I'd rather not.
Took 3 hours. You forgot Little Henry's video game. You're not as entertaining as a video game, Philip.
Silence your oil change anxiety at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Get an expert oil change in about 15 minutes with no appointment needed.
Thanks for coming in.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Service you can see, experts you can trust.
And hey, there's my name again. Should probably get rid of that. There we go. Because the only names that matter at the moment are the ones currently on track. And coming through the final chicane here, does that mean, yeah, don't know that the pace cars picked them up just yet. So again, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. Hopefully the pace car will pick them up this time around. And okay. Oh yeah, there's the pace car coming out. Again, I was getting a little worried because again, I'm not used to the whole race control side of things, and as we take a breather here, we're getting an indication from Mike Marini that it was an equipment failure on his side. Pedals, wheel, and monitor all shut off. Those seem like fairly essential components, my dear friend. An unfortunate set of circumstances indeed for Mike Marini, but again, that has him retired from tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. And I think we probably are well aware that Jordan Kalinian took the opening stage here tonight. Have to imagine we're looking at pit stops this time around. Again, you see the pace car up ahead. There you go, right in view now. And again, it will be Jordan Kalinian leading the field in for, again, what I would expect to be the first round of pit stops, given we were talking about a 9 to 10 lap window for fuel. Everybody queuing up single file on the back straight. That's come through the Le Mans chicane. And then I would imagine / hope that we'd just have the one more lap under the caution here, although traditionally what we've seen, as again we see the sky starting to get a little bit lighter, traditionally what we've seen for these cautions has been 4 laps. I'm hoping it's just a 3-lap buffer here for the longer road course configuration. As of course that would allow for one more racing lap as well. And so as they come through the final chicane, I would expect, and indeed that's what we're seeing, we are seeing the field all drop off into pit lane. So let's get a look at it from the end here. As we're going to see Jordan Kalinian go all the way down. And again, the fact that we're looking at a short stage here, maybe somebody tries a strategy here with 2 tires to jump the field. We shall see. And indeed, we have seen that, and it comes in the form of Andy Hurdle. So he's effectively hurdled himself into the lead. And it looks like Blake Thronberg may have beaten his teammate Jordan Kalinian off of pit lane. So again, an interesting development here. As again, Andy Hurdle is going to emerge as your new race leader. Could have even just been a fuel top up if he was feeling good with the tires. And Andy Hurdle himself with just the 1 race win in his career back at Charlotte a year or 2 ago. But what a statement that would be if he was able to come in cold off the pickleball courts and just pickle the rest of the field. But he's done it with strategy here so far. But again, we'll see what kind of condition the tires are in, and if, say, Jordan Kalinian behind him might have taken the fresh 4. But again, we'll find out soon enough as the pace car lights remain on. So that means we're looking at, I would say, 1 more caution lap, which would mean only 5 laps of competitive racing in stage 2. So a very quick sprint in that situation. And track runs just about 3.6 miles. So for those wanting a math reference, you'd be looking at, say, those 5 competitive laps on the road course. Distance-wise, it would equate to roughly 7 laps of just the Daytona Oval. So there's your kind of distance reference. Obviously, a completely different style of driving required as well. As we'll go back to race leader Andy Hurdle. He's got Blake Thronberg for company on the front row. Again, perhaps a little bit of fuel or pit strategy on the part of the number 3. Again, the defending Earl Ross Cup champ. And we'll take it up high as they go through the final chicane there. We would expect the lights to turn off on the pace car once they cross the start-finish line, which would indicate the restart coming on lap 13. And indeed, that's exactly what's happened as we begin lap 12. Which, again, just as a reminder, means we're looking at a total of 5 competition laps. That's the term I was looking for there. So a relatively quick jaunt through stage 2. And just to reset, as we'll go ahead and flip the camera around. Again, it's Andy Hurdle, your race leader right now. Blake Thronberg on his outside runs second. And it will be Jordan Kalinian taking the restart third. Just doesn't show it on the board there right now. There it is. Jose Mercado will start 4th. Jared Ireland rounds out the top 5. CD Mangrum 6th. Scott Bailey 7th. Lee Campbell 8th. John Williams, a very quiet 9th. And Mario Ercolani currently rounds out the top 10. Then you go through the remaining drivers. Again, we have 2 retirements already in the form of Mike Nickens and Mike Marini. But again, you go through the rest of the field. It's Ryan Gibson starting this one 11th. He'll have Anthony Schauer alongside him on row 6. And then row 7 will consist of Kyle Knoll and Tom Janikowski as we see the field running through the last of the infield sections here before we get back onto the oval. Then, yeah, it looks like a little bit of congestion there in the mid-pack as everyone tries to come to grips with their proper grid positioning. Anyway, Tom Janikowski's in that mix there as well. Showing 14th on the board. Charlie Sears 15th. Mason Tomlinson. Well, Tomlinson showing 15th now, but then Sears 16th. Adam Wilson runs 17th after having a really solid stage 1. And then you see Justin Belmonte about, a half a lap back of the tail of the field right now. I wonder if maybe there was a speeding penalty in play there for the 60. Meanwhile, Tyler Fitzsimmons remains in pit lane, so that could be something to watch. And that could be a disconnection, actually, for the 42, as he's not showing on our screens at all. And then we have Ryan O'Toole 2 laps down. I'm trying to bring it back to our field. And yeah, it's going to be Andy Hurdle leading them off the line. Pace car's still out. Let's see roughly where we are right now. Yeah, about to come into that final chicane. And again, we're watching this from CD Mangrum's point of view presently. Or it might actually be a random spot here, trying to get to the head of the field with Andy Hurdle. Not quite sure why it's not playing nice with me. As the pace car peels off, control goes to Andy Hurdle as we're coming up on the restart zone. And here we go. We're back to green flag racing. It looks like Thronberg may have gotten a better jump on the outside, though. And indeed, almost immediately, Blake Thronberg takes the lead into turn 1. Again, just 5 laps of racing here in this second stage. And again, it looks like Thronberg used the power of that outside line, a bit of extra banking. And that's gotten him up into the lead. Andy Hurdle hanging on to second as, again, we're getting into full daylight territory here. And Blake Thronberg certainly has some daylight on track at the moment, but the darkness is ominous behind him there in that prominent borderline signature purple and black livery of Jordan Kalinian filling his mirrors once again. We'll see how long Thronberg can hold on here. Gap currently at 7/10 of a second, about halfway through this opening lap of competition in this second stage. And we've already got a little bit of separation in the field. We'll jump on board with Scott Bailey here right now, running in 5th. Trying to get to the back of his blue-collar racing teammate, Jared Ireland. He's about 7/10 of a second up the road. Although as that's going on, it looks like we have a battle developing for the lead between Thronberg and Kalinian. Kalinian now right on the back of Thronberg. We'll see if he throws a move on his teammate into 1. as we begin lap 14 of 35. Again, the last of our stage cautions will come out at the end of lap 17 here tonight. Thronberg doing a good job of placing the car here, coming through the Rodriguez horseshoe. Looks like he got a decent acceleration as well, did Thronberg, as they come through the dog leg. Yeah, nowhere really for Jordan. Well, I was about to say nowhere for Kalinian to go. It looks like he's shaped for a move on the inside. Drag race down this straight. Thronberg has the inside line, but Kalinian may have the better run going out to the oval. Could be an entertaining battle between our two chief protagonists in last year's Earl Ross Cup Championship battle, now turned teammates, of course, in the Control-Alt-Defeat Motorsports universe. Kalinian trying to get a run. Or perhaps is this a case of these two teammates just wanting to push each other out further and further from the field? That's entirely possible too. Meanwhile, as this is going on, we'll jump on with Charlie Sears running in 7th. Got a second back of Jose Mercado on track, as they come through the final chicane to complete lap 14. Sears taking a little extra there on the chicane in terms of the curbing. Ryan Gibson doing the same behind him in 8th. And as Sears tries to set his sights on Bailey and Mercado up ahead, we'll go back to the head of the field, where again it's still Blake Thronberg leading this one, with Jordan Kalinian half a second back. These two are almost 5 seconds clear now of third place Andy Hurdle. And again, looks like both are content to just kind of push each other's pace here right now, working the way that teammates should. We'll see if that ultimately pays off toward the end of the race, of course. But for now, it seems to be working a treat, as we'll go to Kyle Knoll, currently running in 12th. We saw him get sideways out of a chicane there earlier. Trying to recover the drive here a little bit. But you see he's got Adam Wilson for company in the background. This battle would be for 12th place. And meanwhile, a few seconds ahead up the road, let's check in for the first time on the number 22 Party City entry of Anthony Schauer out of Chicago, Illinois. There's Anthony driving for K-Tan Racing in that Ford, trying to hold Tomlinson off. Again, this battle is for 9th place on track. And it looks like we have a move at the head of the field. Looks like Jordan Kalinian has taken the lead, and this is where I need to go in and, again, change the, or close the lane. Just trying to get to the right spot. And there, you see how this is done, because now we have 2 laps remaining in stage number 2, and there you see the confirmation of Tyler Fitzsimmons disconnecting earlier as well. So we'll go ahead and get back to our normal view. And, you know, the normal view usually does in fact have Jordan Kalinian at the head of the field, so maybe not the most surprising thing in the world to see. Took him a couple laps of battling with Blake Thronberg to get there. Of course, they both had to jump Andy Hurdle as well at the beginning of the stage, with Hurdle pulling a little bit of strategery to be able to jump the field and start the stage at the top of the board. But again, right now it is Jordan Kalinian back at the top as we are fixing to go to the final lap of stage 2 here shortly. Matter of fact, let's go on board, see where we are. Yeah, we're headed into the final chicane of the lap. Maybe a little bit of a deep entry there for Kalinian, but no matter as he's able to build up the time on Thronberg. And so as he crosses the line here, that will, again, officially begin the final lap of stage 2. Lap 17 overall, maybe running a little wide through 1. But able to hold on to it, but Thronberg's right back on his tail, half a second. Looks like they'll push each other right to the line. And we'll check on that battle again here momentarily. Let's drop back now to Jared Ireland right on the back of Charlie Sears here. And they've caught Andy Hurdle, who's running 5th. So this is 5 through 7 you're seeing on track, with Ireland at the tail of this trio, trying to find a way past Sears to grab an additional stage point if he can. And Hurdle maybe just trying to hold on to the set of tires, frankly, if I had to guess. I would suspect that maybe that was a reason for him being able to jump the line, or maybe short fueling a little. Would certainly be an interesting conversation to have if we got to that point. But speaking of points, oh, Kalinian spins! That is going to hand the stage to Blake Thronberg. Coming through Le Mans, we got to take another look at that. Caught the tail end. And let's see if we can take another look. Let's see if we can see it. Don't know if it's actually going to let us, so gonna go back to the head of the field where, yeah, it's gonna be Blake Thronberg who picks up the stage win. Again, maybe in the most unique of circumstances there. Again, I'd be curious to see what happened to Jordan Kalinian to trigger that spin, as I'm gonna go ahead and throw the yellow for the end of the stage. Again, that's how these things work. And there we go. Let's go ahead and crown him for this stage. It is Blake Thronberg who takes the W here in stage 2 of tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. And now let's see if that gives us an opportunity to go back and see what befell Jordan Kalinian a moment ago. Trying to get a replay going. Not 100% sure what's going on. We may not be able to get that in time. Let's just see here. Yeah, it's not cooperating with me, unfortunately, so let's just throw our leaderboard back on. So we have, 3 retirements here. We saw Tyler Fitzsimmons with the disconnect, Mike Nickens, Mike Marini as well. Still 19 running on track. They're all chasing this guy, Blake Thronberg. As we take a look at our top 10, it's Thronberg winning the stage, Jordan Kalinian 2nd, Jose Mercado 3rd, Scott Bailey 4th, Andy Hurdle rounds out the top 5 as the strategic gamble pays off. Charlie Sears in 6th, Ryan Gibson 7th, C.D. Mangrum 8th, Anthony Schauer comes home in 9th, and Jared Ireland will grab the final stage points as he'll come through in 10th. So, we know they haven't caught the pace car yet. We still have a little bit of time to go, so we're going to go ahead and take one more commercial break. Then we'll be back for pit stops in between stages. And then we'll bring you the remainder of tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise GP from the Daytona International Speedway road course configuration as part of the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series Season 7, presented by our friends at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. So, we will take a quick step aside and we'll be back in about 30 seconds from now.
Good morning, Philip. Time for an oil change. Remember last time?
I'd rather not.
Took 3 hours. You forgot Little Henry's video game. You're not as entertaining as a video game, Philip.
Silence your oil change anxiety at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Get an expert oil change in about 15 minutes with no appointment needed.
Thanks for coming in.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Service you can see, experts you can trust.
All right, we're back to live coverage of the Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix from the Daytona International Speedway road course as part of the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series Season 7, presented by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. And again, you see it's Blake Thronberg leading the field around on lap 19 of 35 here tonight. And while we're in this holding pattern, let's see just how much the weather's changed for our drivers tonight. And matter of fact, only thing that's really changed is the air temperature's gone up a degree. Track temperatures stayed the same at 22. Humidity has remained at 95%. And the winds seem like they've gotten a little bit stronger. But yeah, overall, it doesn't seem like conditions have changed a ton otherwise. So we'll go ahead and pop that off and take a look at a race summary. And so obviously just the 2 cautions, as we don't do full yellows for race courses, or road courses, so to speak. 4 lead changes, 3 different leaders. And yeah, fastest lap, Jordan Kalinian early on. Lap 2, as a matter of fact. Set a time in line with his quality time, 151.789. And now we'll see who's in it for the long haul, as, again, we'll be looking at pit stops this time around. And if the math serves, we'll be looking at, I believe, 14 green flag laps. So this is a prolonged caution here. And, you know, unfortunate that caution laps ruin or take away effectively more than 20% of the race in this configuration. But that's how it is, unfortunately. And this is how we're going to go to pit road, with Blake Thronberg leading the way. As everybody's coming in now, I would expect full service for everyone. And notable that, again, we are expecting 1 green flag pit stop. And so, again, we'll see if anyone decides to pull anything tricky here. And it's going to be Charlie Sears making his way out first. And CD Mangrum jumping a couple of drivers there in a second. Thronberg again comes out ahead of Kalinian, but it's a guy who's proven capable on road courses in the past. The 32 of Charlie Sears driving for 419 or 499. I was about to say 419. That would have combined a couple of teams. 499 Racing out of Charlottesville, Virginia, who's going to lead this to the beginning of stage 3. And again, for those uninitiated, while this is Sears' 3rd season in the NASCAR series with us, he joined us when we were doing what was then known as the Dart Series, which we did because we couldn't officially call it IndyCar But at that point, he had his iRacing Pro license in that discipline and showed that he was more than capable as a driver. And then it carried over to that first season of the NASCAR series, where again I mentioned he was in the championship for back in season 5. A little bit of hard luck befell the 32 last season though, and not the ideal start this year either, although I believe there's at least one missed race in there as well. But what a statement this would be for the 32 if he was able to pick up the win here tonight. And he's not worrying about any kind of in-season challenge either. He wasn't necessarily part of it this year. I don't believe he raced in either one, as a matter of fact. That would just be a quick look at the standings to confirm that. And yeah, confirmation that Sears hasn't raced in either of the last 2 weeks. And that run might actually even be a little bit longer here. So let me just, again, I'll confirm that side of things here as well as we take a look at our overall standings. So as it stands right now, Sears currently 24th in the standings. And yeah, so it's the 2 weeks that he's missed. This is round 7. This is start number 5 for him on the season tonight. And again, as they come through the final chicane, I would expect the pace car lights to turn off shortly after crossing the line to indicate that the restart will be coming on the next lap. And now they cross the line. There go the lights. So yeah, we will be restarting next time around, and it'll be Sears and Mangrum leading the field off the line, with the 2 Control-Alt-Defeat Motorsports drivers in behind, in the form of Thronberg and Kalinian, as we're taking a look at Ryan Gibson from up top. Just kind of doing a random cycle through the field, it would appear. Certainly not my handiwork, as this looks a lot smoother. And it's just kind of alternating placements right now, it would appear. As our leaders are coming through the last of the infield section. Oh no, I spoke too soon. They're doing the West Horseshoe. So still a little ways to go as Sears decides he wants to have a go at the pace car. Yeah, for some reason focusing on Anthony Schauer there briefly, but again, we'll bring the focus back to our race leader, Charlie Sears, who again provides a bit of an interesting conundrum for the field, given that he does typically perform well on these road course configurations. And now they're out of the infield, making their way down the back stretch. Here you get a full field look. And so by way of a reset, again, it will be Charlie Sears leading them off the line. CV Mangrum on his outside in second. Blake Thronberg. Car 3 will start P3 in stage 3 with Jordan Kalinian on his outside, even though the leaderboard has them on opposite sides. That's how they're lined up. Jose Mercado rounds out the top 5. Scott Bailey on his outside, so lots of experience in row 3. Then you have season 1 champ Ryan Gibson there in row 4. Andy Hurdle on his outside. And then rounding out the top 10 will be Jared Ireland and Anthony Schauer. Again, positions more or less fluctuating just based on where the cars are in terms of their gridding. That's why you see a little bit of movement despite the fields largely being together right now. And then you go through the rest of the field. You have Adam Wilson and Mason Tomlinson lining up together in row 6. Then Ercolani and Knoll in row 7. Got Janikowski and Belmonte after that. Then Williams and Campbell on the back row. You have O'Toole still in pit lane. 3 retirements. There goes the pace car. Here goes Charlie Sears. Let's see what he's got. He's got a great jump off the line, it has to be said, as we are underway in the 3rd and final stage of tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. And oh boy, Sears spins it though. A little too much wheel spin there, and that's going to hand the lead to Blake Thronberg, as I may have made CD Mangrum check up a little bit there too. And suddenly Thronberg's at the head of the field. Kalinian with the overtake on Mercado to get up into 2nd. All sorts of chaos there to begin this 3rd and final stage. So let's go back if we can. See if we can get it from the perspective of one Charlie Sears, who finds himself tumbling down the field into 11th. So let's see if we can go back and see what exactly happened there. As still tumbling down the field now in 12th. I'm not 100% sure why the replay functions aren't working as intended right now. And we'll see what kind of a recovery drive Sears can pull off over the course of the rest of the stage here, as we're down to 14 laps to go. But again, certainly an eventful start to stage 3. Again, Sears was on pole, but spun it coming out of turn 1, and that allowed Blake Thronberg to jump up. And yeah, that front row appeared to be cursed in stage 3 here, as CD Mangrum's dropped from 2nd to 7th. And it's all Control-Alt-Defeat out front. Thronberg and Kalinian. This may well be the battle here for the rest of the evening, as we're down to 13 laps to go now in tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise GP at Daytona's International Speedway, the road course configuration. And a little bit of a checkup maybe there from Thronberg. Looked like maybe a little bit of smoke off the brakes. And he's built himself up a little bit of a gap below Jordan Kalinian, not one to give up breathing room that easily. Gap will start to close again as they come through the West Horseshoe and out of the infield section. And as they do, and as they make their way to the backstretch, this seems like a good time to acknowledge our longtime friends at TrackCams22.com, even though we're not using their cameras right now. They've been great to us over the years, so let me take a break and let's go ahead and crank it up, shall we? Well, we might actually come back there prematurely as we saw Scott Bailey spin out there in the background. He was running in, I believe, 6th position, maybe 7th. But now he's dropped to 11th as a result of that spin that we saw. So I guess that's just a quick interjection there. So we'll bring it back to Blake Thronberg. And as I go to get some water for the rest of the stage, how about we do round 2 of Crank It Up here real quick. Alright folks, that was once again the Crank It Up from our friends at trackcams22.com. And we bring it back to live coverage here, still following Charlie Sears as he tries to make his way back up the field after that spin to begin stage 3. Of course, he led the stage to begin, but now finds himself in 8th, trying to salvage some points. But the real battle's at the head of the field, where it's still Blake Thronberg leading, but Jordan Kalinian's right there on his tail. 0.3 of a second separating the two Control-Alt-Defeat Motorsports drivers. Again, effectively leaving the rest of the field behind. Third place, Jose Mercado, 9 seconds behind. as we're down to 9 laps to go. And again, the one interesting variable here is just wondering what fuel strategies, or pit strategies, I should say, are going to look like here the rest of the way, because we are, well, not anticipating, we're downright going to see a green flag pit stop here at some point for everybody. Again, the question will be whether they wait until 4 or 5 laps to go, or maybe they come in a couple laps early to try and get a bit of an advantage that way. But for Blake Thronberg and Jordan Kalinian, they are more than content to just push the pace here. And, oh, Thronberg a little bit loose there. This could hand Kalinian an opportunity down the inside. And indeed it is. Jordan Kalinian just sitting back waiting for the mistake from Blake Thronberg, much as Thronberg did to Kalinian at the end of stage 2. And turnabout's fair play, folks. And that's Jordan Kalinian back into the race lead. So that goes down on lap 27 of 35 here tonight. Thronberg trying to answer back on the inside. Was there contact between the two there? If not, certainly close. But both survive in the meantime. But again, it is Jordan Kalinian now holding the race lead as Blake Thronberg heads into pit lane. I wonder if maybe he had something happen there. Kalinian stays out. And yeah, I'll be curious to see what service Thronberg takes. Again, you would think a shorter pit stop now because the fuel wouldn't have to last as long. And yeah, it's just a quick gas up to get to the end for Thronberg. And we'll see how much longer Jordan Kalinian stays out, if he kind of merits a response to what Thronberg's just done. Try and cover him off a little bit. Thronberg rejoins in 5th. Tucks in right behind Anthony Schauer, as you can see on track. Again, Schauer yet to pit, although we're seeing a little more activity on pit lane here now in the form of CD Mangrum, Tom Janikowski. As we see Mangrum leaving, Janikowski looks like he's taking tires here as well. And Sears maybe disconnecting. We'll have to see, because normally we would be going to a car view whenever we summon him there. But yeah, I wonder if Sears is maybe having a technical problem there, because there's no sign of him on track. And so we'll bring it back to the head of the field, or at least we're trying to. There he is, Jordan Kalinian. And yeah, nothing from Charlie Sears, as you can see. So I would suspect, unfortunately, that something a little worse has befallen the number 32. But until we have confirmation that he's out, we won't speculate any further. As we're down to 7 laps to go in tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. And we have a couple more pit stops happening here. As it looks like that's Schauer and Hurdle who both came in. Indeed it is. And given the livery choice here for Andy Hurdle, I wouldn't be surprised if he, needed to shower a little more, as the 22 just goes streaming by. As a word of note, pit lane speed here on this configuration, 55 miles an hour. It's a little faster than the drivers would be accustomed to. as it looks like they've rejoined in 8th and 9th respectively. Meanwhile, a little further up the field, you see Kalinian bumping and bopping through the Le Mans chicane. I wonder if maybe a little bit of aggression was the trigger for his spin at the tail end of that stage 2 within the final chicane. We saw that spin that handed the stage to Blake Thronberg. We'll see if Kalinian's a little bit more cautious now that he has a bit of a buffer here. And yet he's staying out for another one, so 6 laps to go. Again, you would have to think that Jordan Kalinian would be coming in the next lap or two as he runs a little wide through 1. Tries to get the handle back and does successfully, as Jose Mercado is now in pit lane from 2nd. We'll see what he decides to do service-wise. Whether it's just a splash and dash or whether there's some tires here at the end. And indeed, it is just a fuel stop. We're going to see Jared Ireland likely do the same behind him. Indeed, it didn't look like any tires went there. As now the rest of the field has cycled through. And so the lead now for Jordan Kalinian is about 21.6 seconds as we get our first real look at Justin Belmonte coming in, hitting his marks. I'd imagine this is just a fuel stop for our back-to-back winner. And indeed it is. As Kalinian might try and enlist the help of another North Carolinian in the form of Kyle Knoll, who promptly runs wide at the Le Mans chicane. I was wondering if maybe there was going to be a toe in play there for Kalinian, but that was not to be. And now Kalinian navigating this chicane, the final one of this lap. We'll see if he comes in this time around. And indeed he does. So we'll see what the gap is as Kalinian makes his way into pit lane. Where is Blake Thronberg right now? Again, the gap was about 21 seconds coming through. Let's see what Kalinian does for pit stop. I would imagine it's a splash and dash here for 00, but no, there's tires. Boy, oh boy, this could be interesting. I think it's just 2 tires there for Kalinian. Thronberg's coming through 1. Where's he going to come out? Where's Jordan Kalinian in relation? Thronberg coming through, just flinging through. And Blake Thronberg with the undercut. He's got the race lead. So, great bit of execution there from Blake Thronberg. Although we'll see if Jordan Kalinian's able to lean on those 2 tires that he took over the next 5 laps. See if he's able to use those to get a little bit more grip to cut away at this gap, like I mentioned, and see if we got ourselves a fight to the finish between 2 teammates. And notably for Kalinian, the tires wouldn't necessarily be up to temperature yet. So we'll see where he is speed-wise, as Thronberg's been out for a couple of laps now after his stop. But right now it feels like it's going the way of the 3, which would be his 2nd win of the year, 4th of his career. As, oh man, Kalinian uber aggressive through the Le Mans chicane. Nearly lost the wheel there again. Trying to make up that gap. It's down to 1.15 seconds right now. After the pit stops, Thronberg did have about a 1.7 second lead. So Kalinian is eating into it after he gets the car back under him following the pit stop. But we'll see if he's got enough time to get right to the back and execute a move. As let's go. Oh, I say that. Thronberg running a little wide, and there's Kalinian right on the back. Again, maybe this is where the 2 tires the Kalinian took will give him an advantage. As I think Thronberg may have just done a splash and dash when we checked in on him before. But Thronberg, again, I mentioned it earlier, just fantastic car placement here through this infield section. Shuts the door on that inside line that Kalinian used to get traction to get him earlier. And as they come out of the infield, this is shaping up to be a pretty fun battle here, it has to be said. Meanwhile, speaking of battles, admittedly, there isn't really a whole lot happening on track outside of this lead battle. But let's do one more brief check-in once we see Thronberg and Kalinian get through the chicane. We'll do one more check-in on Adam Wilson here, who's effectively sandwiched between Scott Bailey and Justin Belmonte. This would be otherwise the closest battle on track. A couple seconds separating Bailey and Wilson, while Belmonte's a further 1.5 seconds back. So yeah, definitely a lot of separation ongoing here, as we should update the field, as we have 5 retirements now, as and not a great night for guys named Ryan. Both Gibson and O'Toole joined the list of early casualties. And again, we would expect Charlie Sears to potentially be there as well. So minimum 5 retirements, potentially 6. Few guys who aren't on the lead lap. So I think we're down to 12 cars currently on the lead lap in tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise GP. And we'll bring it back to our lead battle, which does feature Blake Thronberg and Jordan Kalinian. Easily the best entertainment here, as we're down to 3 laps to go. And they're coming out of the infield here now, getting back out to the oval. Again, Thronberg looking to pull off the double, having won the Daytona 250 earlier this year. But Jordan Kalinian's going to have something to say about that. He is all over the back bumper of his teammate. Looking to maybe shape for something down the back stretch. Yeah, not quite. Thronberg certainly with the speed to match for now. And a little bit of a slide from both drivers coming out of the Le Mans chicane. It's going to allow Thronberg to shake Kalinian ever so briefly. And this will be the battle to watch here, undoubtedly, right up to the end as Thronberg goes sideways. And that's how this battle could end, folks. Blake Thronberg, same spot that Jordan Kalinian got eaten up to end stage 2. It gets Thronberg here this time. And let's see if we can get another look. Trying to, but I don't think that's going to work out for us here, unfortunately. But I'll tell you who it has worked out for is Jordan Kalinian, who again finds himself comfortably back in the race lead. 8.5 seconds now the gap. The 00 just has to nurse this one home now. But we may have been robbed of some entertaining racing right down to the end there. And certainly it'll go into the books as another road course race win for Jordan Kalinian if he's able to hang on. But this is far from textbook, and we'll have plenty of questions for him in the post-race interview if he's able to hang on. Certainly Blake Thronberg will have his insight as well, as he figures to be part of the conversation as well. And even still, Kalinian hopping those curbs in the Le Mans chicane. Not letting up on the accelerator, certainly. And as it stands right now, it looks like Jose Mercado would be the third party to join us in the post-race chatter. But again, we will have to see. We got to get everybody across the line, of course. And looks like it'll be Jordan Kalinian leading to the line as we are on the final lap of tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. Kalinian holding roughly a 10-second gap after an unfortunate incident there with Blake Thronberg. I think he may have just hopped a curb a little bit too aggressively, similar to, like I said, what Kalinian did at the end of stage 2 to hand that one to Thronberg at that point. But this one certainly has bigger ramifications, as that's the race win ultimately decided in that moment. Kalinian looking rather comfortable here. Meanwhile, got ourselves a neat little battle happening for fourth. And it's Andy Hurdle starting his season with a strong performance here. They've just shaken off Anthony Schauer, but he's got Mason Tomlinson there. And not 100% sure what's going on there, but it looks like Hurdle just let Tomlinson through there for a moment. Anyway, that's still a top 5 performance here for Andy Hurdle if he's able to hang on. Anthony Schauer might have something to say about that. But yeah, that would be an incredible debut for the 7 if he's able to hang on. Again, remember, he led this race at the beginning of stage 2. Was able to concoct a fuel strategy or pit strategy to jump the couple of guys ahead. But ultimately, nobody's going to have an answer for Jordan Kalinian as he comes through the final chicane for the last time. Make it 3 dubs on the year. And that'll be win 22 of the career of Jordan Kalinian. He wins tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix. And Blake Thronberg crosses the line now. He'll come home in second. And we still have a little ways to go before we get to Jose Mercado. But again, it's yet another victory celebration for the 00. As Mercado's going to come through. He's going to complete our podium right about now. So this could be a very interesting chat here tonight, folks. As it'll be Jordan Kalinian, Blake Thronberg, and Jose Mercado joining me post-race. And we'll see what the run to the line looks like here for cars 5 through 6. It looks like Schauer may have been left in the dust a little bit. Tomlinson's going to hang on for 4th. Andy Hurdle rounds out the top 5. And a solid showing for Anthony Schauer, finishing this one in 6th. As it looks like we'll wind up with 11 cars on the lead lap here. And they're just content to disconnect straight away. Can't say I blame them, given the overall landscape here at the Daytona International Speedway road course. And so we'll bring it back to our race winner. We would expect him to be onto the front stretch here shortly. That is, of course, if he hasn't disconnected already. Let's see where you're at. There he is. And again, I would expect a celebratory occasion here as he comes through the final chicane once more. Even starting the burnout prematurely with a bit of a slide out of said chicane. And there he goes. Because, yeah, I don't know about you, but for Jordan Kalinian, he's got to be feeling win number 22. He's got to be feeling pretty good about it. Again, it wasn't always the perfect set of circumstances, but ultimately, the record books will show Kalinian has converted another pole position into a race win. And of course, we're going on board here for some of the celebratory burnouts and donuts. Yeah, something we've seen him do more than a time or two over the course of the last 2.5 years within the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR series. In fact, he's literally done it more than anybody else. As we will kind of await the disconnection here, I would say. And as that's going on, we will go ahead and pop up the unofficial results momentarily. As soon as I make sure it's titled properly. And okay, so let's go ahead and throw up our unofficial results here tonight. Of course, it is Jordan Kalinian with his 3rd win of the season, 22nd of his career now. Finishing 10.5 seconds ahead of Blake Thronberg. Certainly far from indicative of how the race itself went. Jose Mercado, again, will round out our podium after finishing 3rd. Sizable gap there to 4th and 5th place, Mason Tomlinson and Andy Hurdle, rounding out the top 5. Again, impressive debut here for the season for Andy Hurdle tonight. Anthony Schauer finishes 6th. The last car to be within a minute of Jordan Kalinian at the top of the board. Scott Bailey comes home in 7th. Justin Belmonte, relatively quiet evening overall, but comes home 8th. Adam Wilson 9th. And then CD Mangrum rounds out your top 10. As we will check in on the rest of the field. Again, 22 drivers took the green flag here tonight. 12 finished on the lead lap. Mario Ercolani and Tom Janikowski the last to finish on the lead lap. And then you have drivers who had a number of issues befall them over the course of the evening. Kyle Knoll finishing 13th, 3 laps down. 4 laps down for Lee Campbell. Jared Ireland comes home 15th, 5 laps down. Then John Williams, 7 laps down in 16th. Charlie Sears, who, again, if you remember, actually led at the beginning of stage 3, but may have had a technical issue there not too long after, finishes 17th, or is classified 17th. Then the 2 Ryans, Gibson and O'Toole, 18th and 19th, respectively. Tyler Fitzsimmons with a retirement during the caution period between stages 1 and 2. And then we round out the field with the 2 Mikes, Nickens and Marini, who each had a couple of things go on earlier in the race, so they had premature ends to the evening. So, with that in mind and that all done and dusted, let's go ahead and see if we can make a little connection into the Discord just to see what we've got here. And yeah, I'll make sure that I'm actually showing everything properly here this time. Looks like we can go ahead and do that. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and jump into the top 3 chats. All right, I think we're just about ready. I think we have everyone pretty well ready to go. As, yeah, we have 2 of our 3 in the top 3. We're just waiting for 1 more. And rather significantly, it will be the guy who winds up on the top of the podium here. The 00 of Jordan Kalinian that we're waiting for. And not sure if I need to be dragging him in here or what's going on. Oh, there he is. There he is. So we do have our top three in here right now. I'm just going to make sure that we have levels coming in properly. It might help if I unmute Discord within OBS. So again, we have our top three in place, beginning with our race winner for the 22nd time in his E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series career, the 00 of Jordan Kalinian, driving for Control Alt Defeat Motorsports out of Salisbury, North Carolina. Jordan, do I have a copy?
Got you, Jordy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and we got some levels here as well. And joining Jordan here in the post-race chat is the other half of the Control Alt Defeat Motorsports duo, the number 3 of Blake Thronberg, driving out of Graham, North Carolina. Again, coming home second here tonight. Blake, you got me?
Yes, sir. I got you.
All right. And again, that all came through properly here as well. And rounding out our top three, a guy that I haven't spoken to in this capacity for literally years now, but great to be able to chat with him again. It's the number 41 of Jose Mercado, driving for GTR Motorsports out of Kissimmee, Florida. Jose, do you got me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
All righty, boys. Well, that was certainly didn't fit the prototypical road course race within the E-Motorsports Network NASCAR series. So, yeah, let's go to Jordan here first. Sure, the record books will say, it was a pole position converted to a win, but anyone who was kind of watching over the course of the evening knows it was far from academic. So, maybe just kind of take me through your perspective of how the evening went and how you were ultimately able to arrive back in the winner's circle here, so to speak.
Yeah, I felt like the first and second stage went pretty well. Just first stage, kind of pacing myself and figuring out what the car can do. Get the stage win there. Stage two was a little bit difficult because we had the two cars in front of us after the stops stay out on no tires. So working through there, trying not to get caught up in a wreck. Just kind of pacing myself again, waiting to see if maybe Blake can make a mistake so I can get by him or not. I think we finally got by him there, and then I junked it in the chicane. So driver error there, but stage three was a bit more of a mess and just trying to keep it going. Lost the lead and just had to keep up and stay within a shot of it. And got by Blake a little bit there at the end. And then I think he got me on the pit cycle, just able to put down some better laps on me there for a little bit. So I knew if I could just stay close to him, try and hope for a mistake on his end and maybe get by and get another win. And fortunately for me, that happened. And luckily, he was still able to recover for second.
Yeah, and now obviously that brings in a different component here from Blake's perspective. Obviously, the two of you, yourself and Jordan, had a great battle here over the course of the evening. Didn't go your way there tonight, but over the course of this year, obviously, we've seen the progression of the Control Alt Defeat duo, particularly in road course prep. Blake, what have you been able to kind of learn or take from Jordan to kind of be able to come close to matching that level over the first couple of road courses we've been at this season?
Yeah, man, he's been a big help. Just been running laps, just putting laps down, muscle memory. So he's gave me a few tips, pointers, and really helped me out, man. And like I said, it's pretty cool to run with because normally he dominates these races.
Yeah, and again, Jordan kind of alluded to it before. Both of you kind of had your issues with spinning out, I believe, at the same chicane for both of you guys. So, I guess from your perspective, like that last one that ultimately decided the race, was that just maybe a case of pushing a little bit too hard in defending, or what ultimately happened there?
I didn't take any tires right there on that last stop, and a couple laps before that. I mean, to stay out in front of him, you got to push really hard. And I changed my brake bias to the front just a little bit right there at the very end, and then, like I said, it just got too much of the front brake in it. It just got loose and couldn't save it.
Yeah, I mean, these things happen in racing, of course, and like I mentioned, it happened to both of you at different points of the evening. But yeah, ultimately we see a 1-2 for Control Alt Defeat. But now we'll turn the attention to Jose. Obviously, last week you had, the win very much in hand before that unfortunate shift kind of got you at the end. How much does it mean to you to be able to kind of secure this kind of finish 1 week after to sort of rebuild or restore that kind of momentum or positive vibes?
I feel good, Jordy. It feels like I'm the winner of the best of the rest. Those two guys, they have a lot of speed. They had a lot of speed all race. There was no way I was catching them. Uh, Charlie had a lot of speed too, but he made some mistakes. So I'm happy with the top three after I choked it last week. Happy to be on the podium, and hopefully I can go chase another win or not choke it next time.
I mean, positivity is part of this too, right? Just being able to kind of live and learn, or just have that goldfish memory, just to be able to kind of forget it as quickly as possible, right? So ultimately, good job to bounce back there from you. And yeah, just to, I guess, where do I want to go with this here now? Obviously, a different kind of variation on what we've been doing here with the change into kind of the sunrise configuration here. We're used to going from daytime to night for the majority of the races, but it was more the opposite today. So I'll open this one up to the entire panel here, or the entire group. Just what was that experience like, being able to, or having to adjust to kind of the opposite level of lighting to what you'd be typically racing in? And yeah, whoever wants to start that, feel free.
I'll go first. It was nice. It was a good race. I'll give all the credit to City Mangrum. He's the one that came up with the idea. I put the race on the schedule, the track on the schedule, but he came up with the idea of the sunrise race. Um, it changed a lot. The track changed a lot. It was a 4 times acceleration, so it made a big difference on the braking zones and everything. Uh, I felt like, at least on my car, it made a big difference. But it was nice to have something different. It was a good race all in all, and it was a good idea to me. It was something different.
All right, Jordan and Blake, anything to add to that from your perspective?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Like as I said, you had to get comfortable with your breaking points, and then all of a sudden, sunrise comes and it changes everything. I know it's definitely getting into the chicanes. You couldn't see that first, I guess you would say, rumble strip until you got right up on it. So it took a couple laps, but yeah, all in all, it was a pretty cool idea. It kind of threw me off for a minute. I was like, "Whoa, we started at midnight or early in the morning and got into it." But once they explained it, it all made sense, and yeah, that was a pretty cool idea by CD.
Yeah, like they both already alluded to, like you kind of get used to transitioning from day to night, where you just keep gaining grip, and in this case, kind of your braking zones keep getting longer and longer with each lap, and just a lot easier to make mistakes that way.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we saw kind of a couple of maybe uncharacteristic things. So yeah, we definitely got a feel for that over the course of the evening as well. And as you say, something different as well. But now, next week, we kind of go back to more of the same ish compared to, well, in reference to last week in Kentucky, it's Kansas next week. So I guess again, we'll open it up to the full fields here. Whoever wants to jump in with sort of early expectations, or yeah, thoughts on how they think things will go next week at Kansas Speedway.
Go ahead, Jose. We'll do it again like we just did.
I would say, man, it's all a matter of saving the tire and try to keep that 13 hometown boy behind everybody, because he's hungry for a win. I know he loves Kansas. My boy Jared, that's his hometown track, so he's gonna be one to reckon with next week, especially. And then these two guys they always bring the speed. So back to the ovals again, and hopefully to the same transition again from day to night, and we'll try to go get a W, and we'll go from there.
There you go. All right, Control Alt Defeat. Feel free to chip in. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I just think it's about the dirty air. Really key in these cars right here. how much the dirty air affects it. And like Jose said, just beating Jared because he's always good there, especially these other two guys and many other guys in the field. So just clean air and saving tire and just hopefully not a pit strategy game, but if it comes down to it, hopefully make the right calls.
All right, Jordan, take us home.
Yeah, not really sure what to expect yet. It's really Kansas races highly dependent on how the setup is. I think this year we kind of had a trend of setups being a little bit more on the snug side. So I'd expect very high lane dominant. Whoever can get to the lead and hold off that high lane probably have a really big advantage. And everyone else behind them is just going to be burning up the tires.
All right, we'll see how that all shakes out. But before we let you guys take off, it's shout out time. You guys are familiar with this here now. Just kind of let the people know who you appreciate in terms of, being able to be involved here from week to week and, just being involved within the series overall. And I guess we'll go same order.
Go first. I'll go first again.
Sure.
I want to say, first of all, hope he feels better to Corbin. We missed him today, race control. Gave more work to Jordy up there in the booth and doing the cautions and stuff. Everybody that puts the league together, all the drivers that come back, GTR Motorsports, Valvoline for sponsoring the league, and thanks to you, Jordan, for taking out of your Monday nights to, jump in the booth and call the race out.
Appreciate that. All right. I guess we'll head back to Blake next.
Yeah, just want to thank all the guys behind the scenes that make this happen. Jose and all the the guys that stuck around to keep the season going. Sponsors, Bad Boy Designs for the paint schemes, Control at the Feed, Curry Speed Shop, CR31, and Total Construction. Like I said, thank you, Jordy, for taking your time to do this, putting on a good show.
Appreciate you, sir. And yeah, Jordan, we know how this goes. We've done this a few times. Let's hear it.
Yep, just appreciate everybody in the league for putting this on. It's been fun, and looking forward to have it keep going for the rest of the season and seeing what we can do.
All right, boys. Thanks so much for the time. Congrats on the top 3 finishes, and we'll see you all at Kansas here next week as we wrap up the month of June already.
Catch you guys next week.
Hey, yes, sir.
Appreciate it. I'll see y'all.
All right, folks. That was the post-race interview with our top 3 here tonight. Again, race winner Jordan Kalinian. That is race win number 22 all time in his E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series career. Joined on the podium by Blake Thronberg in second. And again, Jose Mercado coming through in third here. So again, insightful chat with all 3 of them. We'll take one last commercial break and we'll go ahead and set things up for next week as we progress in the in-season challenge as well. So we'll lay all that out on the other side.
Good morning, Philip. Time for an oil change. Remember last time?
I'd rather not.
Took 3 hours. You forgot Little Henry's video game. You're not as entertaining as a video game, Philip.
Silence your oil change anxiety at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Get an expert oil change in about 15 minutes with no appointment needed.
Thanks for coming in.
Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Service you can see, experts you can trust.
All right, folks, that'll wrap up coverage of tonight's Nordic Aluminum Sunrise Grand Prix from the Daytona International Speedway road course configuration in Daytona Beach, Florida. But don't go too far because, again, we wrap up the month of June here next Monday night as we head to Kansas Speedway, and that'll be for the Tornado Alley E-Racing 200. And again, that'll go down at Kansas Speedway on Monday, June 29th. And again, start streaming time roughly 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, as it has been over the last little bit since I came back. And that's what we're looking at. And again, that'll take us to the end of June, and it'll take us to a 1-week break after that. So looking forward to seeing the field go all out for that final one before we get the week off. So on behalf of the competition committee, all the drivers, all the sponsors. We certainly appreciate all of your attention and continued support within the E-Motorsports Network. My name's Jordy Carraher, and hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast of the Nordic Aluminium Sunrise Grand Prix from the Daytona International Speedway, the road course configuration. And we hope to see you in Kansas next week for some more exciting E-Motorsports Network action. We'll see you later.